Hey, this is Rich over at TVP Live with another quick tips tutorials brought to you by Photoshop Elements Custom Tutorials Group. And let's jump right in with today's poster who wanted to know how to add a statue to both sides of this church altar along the wall. Now the poster wanted to add this statue, which was obviously taken from a different facility. Now what they should have done was to take the photograph from the same angle that you want this to be at, because no matter what we do, it's going to look like it's a straight on angle when we bring it into this photo. So if you wanted to stand in the middle of this room and have a statue on the right, then you should have stood to the left of the statue and taken a picture with the statue on the right. That would have given us the proper angle for the statue. So that's kind of like the first mistake that's going to be an issue when we place it in front of this background. But we'll go ahead and try it and see how it looks. Now the issues here is that you got these articles on the wall and you've got the chairs here, so we've got to take care of those first. Let's start with the articles on the wall. You got the cross and you got the oils here. We want to get rid of those, so let's go ahead and add a new layer on top of our background layer. That's what we're going to add the clone stamp tool, and we're going to come down here and pick something like 100 points in the size. That looks pretty big. And we're going to grab a piece by holding the Alt down over here, then we'll copy it over here. And the reason why we pick it way over here is because we're going to have to cover all this going from left to right. If we start it here, by the time we come over like this, you're going to start to see a copy of the same cross. We don't want to do that. So I'm going to grab it from right around here. I'll hold Alt and click the left mouse button. Now I can come down here and start painting over it. And you see what happens? It all disappears. And there we go. Now, it's a slightly different color than the rest around there, but that's because we grabbed it from up here. There's not much we can do about that unless we were to recreate the whole wall. That's a whole nother video. In our case, I'm just going to go to Enhance, Lighting, Brightness, and I'm going to change the brightness so that it matches a little better. I can go darker, I can go lighter, and just kind of go somewhere in between. It's not going to be perfect, but I think for these purposes, it should work just fine. And there we go. Here's the before, after, before, after. And now let's move on to the chairs. Since we want the statue to possibly be in the way of the chairs, I'm going to cut out the chairs so that the statues can actually start down here further in case the backs of the chairs get in the way. So I'm going to come down here and copy a portion of this chairs. I'm going to go down to that layer. I'm going to grab a square and I'll just draw a square around the chairs like this. And I'm going to hit copy. I can turn off the background, and now what I want to do, and I'll turn off that top piece too, is basically cut the chairs out. And I can try with the magic tool, although I'm not sure how good it's going to work. Let's try this at 50%. And you can see it's cutting into the table. That's not going to work very well. It's also cutting into the chair, so I'll go ahead and undo that. Let's change this down to about 25% and try that again. And you can see it's a little bit better, but you know what? I don't like the magic tool for this particular purpose. It's just not doing very well because the chairs are actually kind of fuzzy. So we'll just have to do them by hand. Grab the eraser and grab a really small soft eraser down here. Here's a soft brush and do something like a 5-point. And basically we're just going to draw around the whole edge of the chairs. And that's all there is to it. And we really need the top half, not the bottom half. And that's just simply in case we get the statue anywhere in front of the chairs, it'll show right through. Get rid of all this. Once we come over to the other side, I'm going to grab the polygon tool and just basically cut out the rest of that background that we don't need. We can cut out like this. We could have used the polygon instead of the eraser, but what happens is that the photographs are naturally not very sharp, and this polygon tool is so sharp that it would be more obvious had we tried cutting it out with the polygon tool alone, because all of a sudden you'd have these sharp table and edges where everything else isn't all that sharp. Once we get to the end, we'll double click, and all we got to do is back out and hit delete. And there we go. We deleted most of the background around the chairs. And now all we got to do is turn the background back on, and you can't even see because it's seamless. Now let's go ahead and turn on our little patch here to cover the wall. And now let's go over to the other project, which is our statue alone. we're going to have to go ahead and cut this statue out. So I used the cropping tool so I can cut most of the background out. And let's go ahead and fix this a little bit by going to Enhance and Smart Fix. That automatically made it a lot brighter, which is great. It'll make it easier for us to cut it out. Once again, let's use the eraser and a really small soft brush tool at about 5 points. We just basically start tracing out, and you see what happened? It's white. Why is the eraser white? Because we didn't unlock the photo. When we don't unlock the photo, it keeps the background white. I'm going to hit undo. Let's go ahead and make sure that we unlock the photo right there. Now when we go ahead and do this, it's going to erase it, leaving us an alpha channel in the background. All we got to do now is trace the whole edge of this statue and making sure not to cut into it too much. So as you can see, this has taken a little bit of elbow grease to cut out the statue here, but it will look a lot more realistic because we did. Now we're going to take the polygon tool and we'll trace what we just finished cutting out in between the background and our foreground, making sure not to touch either side. Once I get to the end of the polygon, I can pull out here and I can hit delete, but that's not what we want to delete. We want to delete the background. So I'll right click and hit select inverse. That'll select everything else but what we need. And once we hit delete, boom, there we go. I'll hit Control and D to deselect it. And now we have cut out our statue with its pedestal. So now let's go ahead and drag that with the left mouse button, hold it down, come over to the other project, come back over here and let go, and obviously it's the wrong size, so we can grab the top left or the top right and just drag it down like that with the left mouse button to whatever size we want. Now this is where you're going to see that the perspective is off and we should have taken the photograph from a different side angle if you wanted it to be over on the side here. So you see, no matter where we put it, it still looks like it's facing forward and not taken from the side. But now we want to do is put this into a different layer so that it looks like it's behind the chairs. So we'll take this layer, pull this down just below the chairs layer, and you'll see it disappears once we do that right behind the chairs. And now it really looks like you're placing it behind the chairs. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, right around there. That might be a good size. And now we can play around and place it anywhere we please, and it won't be bothered by the chairs. If this pedestal is too big, what I would do is I would first straighten it up like this. Then what I would do is cut the pedestals out by using the rectangle square tool and draw a big square like this up to the top, the corner there. I'll hit cut, and that made two different layers. Take that bottom layer and bring it up and shorten it. Now it's a better perspective, at least from the vertical is concerned. And let's just make it like right around there. And we'll hit OK. Let's go ahead and attach that layer to its top layer right there. I'll right click here and merge down. And there we go. We put it back together where it was before. Now if we really want, we can add a drop shadow to it to make it look like it's standing off the wall. I'll right click, edit layer style. I'll do a drop shadow, and there's our drop shadow. All we got to do is change the angle to the right angle that we're looking for. I'm not sure exactly where that angle should be coming from, but since the light source is up here, I'm going to put the angle kind of like this. I'll bring the distance down a little bit closer, and then I'll fuzz it out by making the size bigger like that. And once we got that where we want it, then you take the opacity and just make it really tiny, almost non-negligible, just around there. See, it's really, really subtle. And that's all we need. I'll show you the before, after, and that looks good. Let's go ahead and pull back out and show you exactly what it looks like. Now it really looks like it's a statue standing off of the wall. And that's all there is to it. Well, that's it for this tutorial. This is Rich, calling it quits, saying over and out.